Good afternoon, everybody. Hello, here I come, I guess. What that means. That's probably a little bit more colour on there. Let's have a look. Yeah. So I'm just trying to adjust my camera. I've only got one monitor that's really beautifully calibrated for colour, and it's not either of these two. So I'm trying to match these, get this, because it makes everything much redder than usual, and I'm already got a red face, and I don't want a red face. Failed Muso, will I be at Synthfest on Saturday? Yes, myself, Gaz, and Andy are all going up, staying Saturday night as well. So yes, we will be there. We're travelling up early Saturday morning and going to the event and sticking around until the very end, and then coming back on Sunday. So yeah, so we will see whoever you there. So if you're going to Synthfest, yeah, say hi. We'll have the full complement of well, not the full complement, but Gaz, myself, and Andy will be there. Ah, oh, pardon me. Right. So, have we got everything sorted out? Yes, I don't need that open. Just doing a bit of tidying up. We've got everything running, I believe. So, we've got, yep, smashing. So, just waiting for our guests. Today we have Ty and Matt and Steve. So those are, we got a full house. Hairless, I guess. I'm afraid it's going to be the bald head and not all of us wearing glasses. Seems to be the look. We are working on trying to get some female guests. It's much harder than it seems. It's not that I think there's a sort of feeling that coming onto an already established thing that's mostly blokes, let's face it, might be daunting. So it's about finding someone who's game and who wouldn't worry about that. Because I don't think, hopefully we're not intimidating, and it wouldn't be intimidating. It'd be fun, but it's hard to find the right candidate. I mean, we have a team of people that we've put together for the podcast, but that's taken like 8 years. You know, it's not as if people are coming along all the time. So, Mr. Ty, Frozen, not quite Ty. Nearly Ty. Ty almost. Yeah, just waiting for that audio. Cool, Ty. So that's that one as well. So what we got? 1, 2, 3. Yep. Okay. So just waiting for Ty to come up. We've sort of got a freeze frame of him. So close, but it's frozen. It's a new view. Never seen that view before. Right, sorry. Blah, 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 blah. Okay. Right, so what have we got? Let's just see. We've got that guy. Yeah, well, of course, this will be big news then, won't it? Obviously. It's going to be hard to ignore this particular elephant in the room. Another Sweetwater scoop right there. Good for them. But a bit strange. I suppose, you know, one of the biggest US retailers, why wouldn't they get the scoop? But sometimes it's nice for the press to get hold of these things. I suppose we do. So let's see. Still no sign of Ty. Okay, that's all right. Okay, right. But we will have, yes, we are going to have a show today, evidently. Yeah, there seems to be a lot of talk about that. I'm sure that will take up some of the topic. I mean, it's not every day you get a massive, highly specified analog polysynth coming along from Moog. Ty, hello.
Hey.
Hey, we've got a new view for you. Awesome.
It's just called. I set up because I was expecting delivery, and the delivery's just arrived. So.
You seem to be in front of a drum kit.
Yeah, there is a drum kit.
Oh, right, okay. So is this more of your studio space? Or you just it's your kitchen you've repurposed?
No, it's called, I've got a TD50 set up in the lounge.
Okay.
At the moment. But it's fine. It's cool.
Excellent. Lovely to see you.
Yes, and to see you. Absolutely. On this very exciting week.
Yes, it certainly seems to be. Right, so we've got 2 of the 3. I can go to a 2s up there because that's the shot I have, so I can keep everybody excited. It'd be a hell of a room to record a drum kit into. I can hear the ambience there. It's got a kind of give us a hand clap. I want to hear that. Wow. Okay. PCM 60.
It's quite a big room, and I've done recordings. I've got a baby grand over there that I do record. If I record a real piano, it's over there. So
nice.
So yeah, it's very bouncy. It's lovely.
Excellent.
Have you been?
I've been all right. I've been. What's been happening? Gosh, I can't remember. I've been struggling to catch up with my review schedule because obviously I went to America for well, it wasn't a week. It was like a long weekend, but it's really sort of disrupted all of the kind of things that were scheduled. You know, you sort of miss a day organising something else, and then you couldn't finish the review. Then you had to wait till you get back to start it again, and all of that kind of stuff. But yeah, it's good. I've literally just finished the Dreadbox Polyend Medusa review, which I'll be publishing shortly.
Do you like that?
I do. I must admit, when I first got it, I was sort of a bit not sure about this, and then I kind of got it. So you need to. There's a point where it clicks because it's quite complicated or quite different, certainly, in the way that it operates. So you need to kind of get in the zone, and it took me a while to get in the zone. There's Mr. Matthew Hodson. But yes, sorry, carry on. Carry on, Ty.
I was only going to say it's a strange one for me because, well, I mean, you know, I love the Dreadbox stuff. I've got all of their stuff, and I've got the Polyend sequel, which I love. But I have to say, the Medusa, it's just the components of it. I'm sure it sounds great, and I'm sure that the sequencer works well. But every time I look at it, there's just something that doesn't kind of.
I know what you mean.
Click with the way that I work.
It's almost classic Dreadbox sound, but it's not quite. You know, it's sort of it's not 100%. Wow, listen to those oscillators. I mean, they're pretty good. They're not shabby at all, but it doesn't have that. There's that thing that Dreadbox sort of not all and not even all Dreadboxes, but there's that thing that I was hoping to get, and I didn't quite get that. But that doesn't mean it's bad. It just means it hasn't got that. But it's quite. I mean, what it's really great for is sticking some reverb on it and doing this sort of tuning all the oscillators to random or musical intervals and playing polyphonic lines. So you're playing lines, but the inversions are moving around all over the place, and it's sort of dreamy. It's really dreamy for that.
Oh wow!
With those looping envelopes, and also looping envelopes, so you can actually have it so that you play a note staccato and you get one oscillator. You hold it, and then the delay of the envelope can bring in another note and another note, and if you loop them, then they start to kind of create these kind of quite interesting and sort of bonkers textures, but they don't have to be really rhythmic. They can be floating in and out. It's really good. Matt, Mr. Matthew Hodson.
Hello.
Hello. How are you? Yes, I can hear you. Let me just.
Very good.
Let's see.
Is that nice and clear?
That's getting there. Yeah, definitely.
Do you want a bit more volume, or are you okay?
I could do with a tad more because then I've got some headroom here. That's all I would say.
Ah, okay.
That's it. That's all right. Actually, that was better. Maybe that's because you're leaning onto the mic. But
I think so. How's that?
That's good. That's good. That gives me some headroom. Excellent. Look at that. Everybody's got a studio theme, apart from me. I've just got.
Yeah, come on, Nick. Sort it out.
What What can I put? I don't know what I can. I haven't got anything that I can put in there. No, I'm afraid I can't.
I've got a drum kit. That doesn't count.
Well, it's an electronic drum kit, Ty, so it does count.
No.
It does count. Look at that. Matt's room looks like one of those kind of Pro Sound News studio shots. Check out my desk.
Yeah.
Right, we've got Steve there as well. Awesome. And look, we can see his system. Well, no, he's dressed his room a little. It looks different because we can see his stuff. There's the System 100M, what looks like a Carp Odyssey, DX100, and a Boutique SH101, and a CP70, and a Poly 6. How's that for long distance synth spotting? And what's that? Is that a lava lamp?
I think it is a lava lamp.
Or it's a very large sort of paprika cellar by the looks of it. That you could, maybe he likes spicy food and shakes it all over his snacks. That's the other possibility.
I've got to admit, I've got a lava lamp in my studio at home. Sorry.
No, there's nothing wrong with that. I used to have a lava lamp. The thing is they just feel very dangerous, don't they? Because everything sort of heats up and it uses the heat, and you just sort of think, now in the days of energy conservation, and we're all moving to kind of LED and halogen light bulbs, they don't generate enough heat. So
yeah.
And even though you still need to use very low wattage light bulbs, which are quite hard to find, aren't they? They have to be like 20 or no more than 40 watts. Sometimes it's like 20 or 30 watts. So it's quite hard to find.
Just got to get stonking hot. That's basically. Oh, it's nice to meet you, by the way, Ty. I think
is this your first time?
You are joking.
So, yeah. I think we might have met. You might have come into BIM before to do a masterclass here, because you're not far from Brighton, are you?
I'm miles away from Brighton. I'm in the Cotswolds.
Are you? I thought you was.
Yeah.
Oh, crikey.
Wrong Ty.
There's another fat bald bloke.
Well, yeah. Right here.
Put it like this.
But I haven't done anything at BIM either.
If it was good, it wasn't me. If it was shocking, probably was, to be fair. Good to meet you. I can't believe this is the first show. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, there we go.
Anyway,
have you back, because I know you've been busy on collegiate duties, right?
I have, yeah. We've just kicked off this week, first week with the students back, and and I've just been busy as well in the studio. Probably not as busy as Ty, but pretty busy.
Well,
if you knew what I was working on right now, and I have been for the last 2 weeks, you would not want to be. Well, you may be wanting to have my job. I mean, I can tell you now, because we're not. It's fine.
We're live. So we are streaming, of course.
Well, I know, but it's fine. Yeah, it's fine. But I'm doing it's a Channel 4 program, and it's called, and I can't use the final word, My Beautiful C Word.
Okay,
that's what the program's called. It's all about the woman's vagina.
Wow, that's
yes.
Is it challenging?
On a lot of levels, yes.
Yeah.
It's everything to do, and it's very. When I say in your face, I mean I literally mean in your face.
Is it something that you? What was I going to say? Is it something that you will or won't put on your CV?
No, I'll put it on my CV because it is very arty. It is very arty and very beautifully done, and it's a great program, and it's wonderful. But some of there's a section about the female orgasm, and to do this, we created the effect of having a river of orgasms, which meant that I had to find recordings of hundreds of women enjoying themselves.
Wow.
And then forming this river of sound. Like, do you remember in Computer World, where Kraftwerk, they had all the talking, and it forms.
Oh, right. So it's almost like wave surfing.
Absolutely. But except it's with women having orgasms, and they all had to climax on the right beat and lead up and build up to that. And so I spent
a lot of
a whole
time
day
editing
of just listening to that. It's one of the few. I tell you, I'm so glad that the studio is soundproofed. Otherwise, the neighbours would be thinking, "What on earth is going on
Jesus.
there?"
I can imagine the police would be round.
Absolutely.
Wow, like that is. I have to say, Ty, that is a very unusual gig. That's one to, or maybe not the grandchildren. I don't know whether you tell the but the grown-up children, you know, your brother maybe.
Anna did actually turn around and go, should I tell my mum about this one? I was like, no, don't tell your mum about this one. She doesn't need to see this one. But it's very interesting. Don't get me wrong.
Steve, let's have a 1-2 testing from Mr. Steve.
Hello, 1-2 testing.
Hello, excellent.
Do you know, I do really feel like I just want to listen at the moment.
Gosh.
Yeah. So yeah. So been doing that. Been doing some African stuff and lots of other. But anyway, there we go.
Right. Well, we have a team. That's awesome. I'm very pleased for that. Right. Okay. Let's see. I think we could. Oh, we're early. Gosh, we are actually 10 minutes early. I was going to say I've just. I might be able to. Wonder if I can. If I can play. I might be able to put a bit of the old. Let me see. I can put it in vids 5 probably. I might be able to put some RX. Not RX. What am I talking about? Some of the Medusa review because I've got the full rundown. Cool. Let me have a look. I've just got to find the drive that's on. Medusa, I think I've renders, yes, Medusa 1. Here we go. That might play. What happens if I do that then? That's number 5. It's nice in polyphonic mode. This is just straight polyphonic mode. But if I did play up to here, which is, this is the out how to use it, it will. Let me pause that. This thing here, what I'm about to play, I was talking about the fact that you just tune all the oscillators to different intervals, and then play lines, and they kind of jump about all over the place. You do fifths and thirds and ninths and whatnot. Inspire you and will get you to creative places you can't get. Thank you very much for watching. We'll see you next time. I won't play the whole thing. So yeah. But I love it for this, and you get quite a lot of expression. The only thing I would say, the pads are very hard to, they're very sensitive. They need to dial it up. You need to be able to dial the sensitivity up a bit.
How's that keyboard spread out like that, Nick? Is that
I think that's in threes. So you go up 3 notes, and then next line 3, 3. But you can have it in 4s, 5, 6. So you can do it however you. That's probably a minor scale. I think it's a minor scale and in 3s, but you can have 4s, 5s, 6s, and 7s, chromatic, set the scale, set the root, you know, all of that stuff, and that's all remembered per patch, so it's quite cool.
Are the effects coming from that as well? The
no, that's Ventris. Oh. Ventris. Yeah, it's a really nice fit with Ventris. I think I did.
You like the Ventris?
I just think it's for what I'm doing. Yeah, it works really nice.
Yeah,
you know, or what I'm not doing. I mean, you know, noodling. Not, you know, I don't know that it's it for a hardware thing. Yeah, I do like it.
Big luscious reverb stereo, basically.
Well, two big lush reverb stereos.
Oh, of course.
Just dual.
Yeah.
So, and you've got a freeze function on either side, so you can actually what you can do is you can build a texture. And then freeze it, and then keep processing the additional sounds that come in via the second processor. So you're not completely dry. So it's a bit fiddly to set up the way that the foot switches work and make that happen, but it is possible. So you could just kind of go, right, there I am, bang, hit it, and let's hold that right there. And then you've got level over that, and then level over the other effect as well that would be receiving the live input. And it does sound good. There are others. Somebody was talking about one last week, and I can't remember what it was now. Yeah, I've forgotten what it was. But
is there a delay version of the Medusa?
A delay version,
or is it just reverb? Yeah.
No, Medusa's the synth. The Ventris is the.
Sorry.
I suspect it's Source Audio, isn't it? It's Source Audio.
Oh yeah.
and I think
I'll have a look now.
they do a load of pedals, and I'm pretty sure there's a delay as well. It's just nice DSP stuff. Right, so we have Steve, we have Shoegazer. Does that say Shoegazer? Oh yeah.
Yeah, Shoegazer. It's
a label, isn't it?
No, it's a style of music. It's
a way of life.
It is in a sense. It's the famous bands who did it originally were people like My Bloody Valentine and
Slow Dive.
You go back before then. Yeah, Slow Dive, and I suppose you could say that maybe the Cocteau Twins and Jesus and Mary Chain sort of kicked that whole thing off. But really, I think it goes back to the late 60s and 70s, very sort of impressionistic guitar music, lots of reverb or delay, that kind of thing, and very, very loud, but also melodic. And that's the thing that I really like, is that sense of power and dreaminess and melody, and also it looks quite good on a t-shirt, I think. It
certainly does. Hard to beat Cocteau Twins, I have to say. I mean, every time you hear Liz Fraser's voice, it's just kind of like, there's an angel. That's what an angel singing sounds like, surely.
Steve and I have been having lots of Steve and I have been having lots of This Mortal Coil love on Facebook.
Yeah, she sang that with them. I didn't know that. Yeah. Right, I think we are... Oh, yeah.
Oh, sorry, I was just going to say, she did Song to the Siren. And if people listening to this aren't familiar with Song to the Siren, it's by This Mortal Coil. It's well worth hearing. It was a version of the old Tim Buckley tune. And the story behind how it came together is kind of interesting as well. It was, if anything, it was as much of a showcase for the Cocteau Twins and what they were going to become as it was for This Mortal Coil. But just forgetting the context, it's a beautiful piece of music.
I think I can play it a little bit. Is it like the indie shoegaze version of Stairway to Heaven? It's that sort of definitive.
Better than that.
No, but I'm not saying the musical equivalent, but the definite
concept. Yeah.
Concept. There it is. I know this, but I don't think I've heard it. I know about it, but why would I have not heard it?
You're in for a treat.
Is it Robert Guthrie doing the guitars?
On the floating shipless oceans,
oh yeah, I know this.
I did all my best to smile.
Oh my goodness! Yeah, I've already got goosebumps. That's awesome.
I met somebody new a few weeks ago, and we just got talking about music, and we started sharing some our favorite music. And the very first track I said, if you've noticed, this track will change your life, was that.
Right.
It's beautiful. Unbelievable. Yeah.
A bit heavy on the chorus there on her voice. It doesn't need it, I don't think, but I guess they're young.
Shut up. Shut up.
Oh, it's all part of it. Actually, if you, there's a version of this song, I think there's only one recording where they ever did it. They did it live. There's a live recording out on YouTube. I think it was for some television program and it's live. And so you can hear it without the chorus on the vocal, if you like. And she does a very different kind of approach to the tune, but it's brilliant, but in a different way.
Yeah.
So I'd recommend that as well.
Awesome. Yes. Well, I've told the story. Yeah, I went to see Liz Fraser. I've told that story before. Where I was taking my daughter swimming at the sports centre, and there's a little venue next to the sports centre, and she was doing a warm-up date at the pavilion, and I went, oh my goodness, and I just knocked on the door and I said, have you got any tickets left? And they said, yeah, there's one. Here you go. And I bought the ticket that was remaining, and I could not believe, but she was so painfully withdrawn. It was just sonically not as much of a treat as I'd hoped, and the audience was sort of, please just sing a bit louder, we want this to be good, and they weren't hostile. It was like love, just this pure love and sort of empathy going, because she was just excruciatingly nervous, and it was really painful to watch, but still brilliant in a different way. Right, I guess we should do a show. Let me press record on my audio backup, because sometimes I need that. And everybody ready? Let's rock.
Sonic Talk.
everybody. Welcome to Sonic Talk, episode 552, recorded today on Wednesday, the 3rd of October, which is indeed my partner's birthday. Happy birthday, Jane. And also, but it's not really a birthday wishes request program. This is the music technology podcast, Sonic Talk, where we talk about music technology, funnily enough, and studio and synthesizers, electronic music, live production, all the kind of stuff that surrounds the whole business and doings of creating music in today's environment. Anyway, I want to say thank you very much to our sponsors. Isotope, they're going to be giving away a copy of their fabulous new RX7, which is now RX7, which is the audio restore and repair suite, which if you work with audio, you really need to check it out because it fixes everything. It's like magic. It's astonishing. More on that a little bit later. And I want to say hello to our friends in the chat room. This is the YouTube chat room. Hello, everyone. Marshall Arnold and Alan C. and your name here. Interesting. And also those in the IRC, we've got our own IRC chat room as well, and you can find details on how to get to that, sonicstate.com/live, every Wednesday at 4 p.m, as I say. So let's get on to introducing our guests. We'll start with Mr. Steve Hillier over there. We've just been, if you watched the show live, we have a bit of preamble, and we were talking about shoegaze and Cocteau Twins. And Steve, have you been making any beautiful ambient tunes this week, or have you been doing other things?
No, it's actually been other things. I've just finished, or at least I say I'm finished, some vocal comping using the new version of Logic that came out, I think, in the last couple of days, and also the new version of Melodyne that works with it using a new protocol called ARA or ARA.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, and it's I think it's very useful. It requires quite a change in the approach, at least that I use with vocal comping, but it's certainly, I think it's going to speed up the process. We'll see. Although the thing that ARA does is it enables you to change the vocal that's going into Melodyne essentially on the fly, if you like. But what I've noticed already with the way that I work is it means that I can now delay making final decisions even further. And so, I'll get back to you in a month when this is done.
Yeah. Well, you said finished, you meant actually still working or finishing. So there's a difference.
I think that's fair.
Steve, of course, producer, educator, DJ, and live performer, songwriter, and classic Yamaha CP70. Is that a CP70 or a CP80 in the corner?
CP70. It used to belong to Gary Newman, actually.
Oh, really?
I bought it off him a little while ago. Apparently, he only used it on one Australian tour, and it sat in his garage for, I don't know, it must have been 25 years. And I overheard him say this, and I thought, oh, man, I've got to have this. Can I buy it off you? And he said, yeah, cool, come around. And it's been my pride and joy ever since.
I think I heard a story about that, about Gary Newman's synths from his garage, where there was a load of stuff in there that was really kind of dusty and cobwebby, had to be restored. But that's perhaps for another time. Anyway, thank you for joining us, Steve.
Well, I can just tell you on that. When I got this home, with this having lived in the garage for 25 years, it smelt like a graveyard for about a year until it completely dried out. But there's something nice and gothy about that, which I think suits, Gary.
Excellent. No, nice move. Okay, and also we'll say hello to Mr. Matthew Hodson, who's there in Brighton. I think you must be at the college there. That's one of the teaching rooms, right? He's a lecturer,
I am.
Course director. Is it course director? Am I right with that?
Course leader. But
course
you
leader.
Can call me director if you want. It makes me sound even more in charge than I should
be. And also musical artiste. If you haven't seen his videos of him jamming on his modular stuff, well worth watching. I love it. Anyway, how are you, Matt? Very well.
I'm very good. Yeah, I'm very good. It's been the first week back here for the students. And so it's been a busy week so far. Crikey, it's only Wednesday. It feels like it's Friday already. It's been great to meet all the new students here on the course, and already really surprised by what some of them are doing. They're already sending me links of music that they're working on. Really surprised by that. What else have I been doing? I've been been doing a little bit more live streaming. Started doing a little show, kind of like this format with live patching with modular synthesizers. So it's less talking and more sort of patching ideas and just seeing what we can do with modules. Really, it was really geeky, really fun, and I might do a few more of those Actually, that
Excellent.
was quite good.
Well, we'll put a link to that in the in your description on so people can find out where it is and all of those things. And we also have Mr. Ty Unwin. Look, there he is, Mr. Ty Unwin. We don't see him very often because he's such a busy media composer, as his lower third says. But you're looking well, looking rested, and it's still light out.
It is
Daylight.
Exactly. Make the most of it.
It suits you.
I know. I'm not used to this. I'm not used to not being in a darkened room. Yeah, all good. Thank you.
Good.
Not a lot to say other than just obviously too much work, and that's it. That's my life.
Too much work. Well,
Let me see you. See you next time. Bye.
I'm glad you could make it for us this week. Anyway, so we'll get on. We'll get on because obviously the elephant in the room, as it were. I think I can do this. Let's see. This is all we have at the moment because we've just got a load of pictures. This is the news of the Moog 1, which has more than a passing resemblance to the memory Moog, but it's also got the sort of sub 37 style knobs. But it is, they're much fabled and much heralded, but nobody knew if it was real or not. New polysynth, 3 oscillators, 3 VCOs, each with those little with wave shape variability on the regular waves. So 3 oscillators. I'm not sure how many. I've got the list here. 3 VCOs. It comes in 8 or 16 voice polyphony. 3 DA HDSR. I'm not sure. I guess D is delay. I'm not sure what H is. Envelope.
Hold.
Hold. Yeah, of course it is. 3-part multi-timbral. 4 assignable LFOs, oscillator FM, premium note guitar, digital effects on synth and master bus with eventide reverbs, and a bunch of stuff. LAN port for future expansion, drive support for system preset backup, 9 assignable CV gate I/O. Gosh, there's a lot, isn't there? And these are the pictures. It does look very nice. And as ever, whenever somebody, it's funny. There's this sort of sense, it's expensive or it's not expensive. It's a lot of money. For whatever it is, it's a bunch of money if you haven't got that sort of money. So I think there's an 8 voice, which is about $599 US, and a 16 voice, which is $799 US. And in terms of the synthesizer market, it's definitely the higher end. And there seems to be the sense that of ownership that it's like, why haven't they made it cheaper? Well, it's like, well, I know Ty, you have strong feelings about this, but first of all, this. It looks like a real killer synth. I mean, and if they've managed to make it as stable and operationally brilliant as the modern stuff, and not more like the memory Moog, then there's going to be a lot of people desiring this. So let's maybe start with you, Steve. I mean, I guess the first thing for me is a polyphonic Moog. So it almost seems like an impossibility because I mean, how on earth is anything else going to fit in the mix, or how are the notes even going to fit together?
Well, this was my initial reaction to this. I was kind of thinking that if we go back to like the early 80s, people were saying that one of the problems that they're finding with mixing lots and lots of analog synths is that they're all big sounding, and this was from what I remember, one of the reasons why when the DX7 came along, which was a lot thinner, it was a bit of a revelation. It kind of freed up a bit more space in the mix, but it created its own problems as well. So coming back to 2018 and this machine, I think, as a concept, the look at it, it sounds amazing, as a concept. But I'm just wondering, that much Moog all in one place, it just feels like it's going to be rather, unwieldy. It's a bit like having, full cream milk in your tea. I just wonder whether, for my purposes at least, it's a little bit overkill in terms of the sound. On the other hand, if you're a big, Moog fan and that's just what you want, then this could be it. But I don't know. I sort of feel with my relationship with Moogs over the years, I really one note at a time is all I've ever needed. Once you get beyond that, even with I think the duophonic capabilities of the sub 37, just having the oscillators playing different pitches sometimes has led to it sounded overly saturated, or you lose a bit of distinction, or whatever it is. I don't know. I'd like to have a look at it. It sort of makes me feel like it's a bit like a sports car, in the sense that it would be really nice to play with. Not sure I'd want to own it.
Yeah,
Having said that, I bought
can't
a
afford
sports
the,
car,
can't afford the insurance. So, yeah, it's like
that's
one of those
right.
sort of scenarios. Okay, I'm going to come to Matt next because I know that Ty especially wanted to come on because of the release of this, and I know you'd probably be interested. So Matt, I mean, again, you know, I mean, it's an ambitious project, and I really hope it's going to work. I mean, they're going to sell as many as they need to sell. It's going to be no problem whatsoever. They're not going to sell so many to people like me who can't afford synths that expensive. I mean, that's just the bottom line. But I might get to review one.
Yeah, I'd certainly love to hear it and have a play on it. Whether I would own it, I don't know. Basically, you know, if I sold all of my modular gear, I might be able to afford one of these. But then I've got that. So for people like me, you would probably be weighing up buying something of this cost versus, you know, a bespoke modular system, which is more integral to your workflow. I was looking at this one and instantly kind of, because of its functionality, and it seems to be rammed with loads and loads of stuff, just sort of comparing it to the kind of profits out there and the DSI stuff, which to me, when I've used them, are very much orientated towards the keys player to get the most out of the modern day profits and the DSI stuff. You've got to be a keyboardist and take advantage of things like aftertouch and you know, all the modulation you can assign to the playability. So I'm just wondering if this stands up on its own as one of the, I mean, we've got a Moog over here. I'm just wondering if it stands up as one of those classic Moogs you can go over to and just get the fat bass sound out of it without having to be a player. And you know my thoughts on having a keyboard as well. I'm not a keyboardist. So instantly, it's got the XY pad on it, which is cool. But for me, again, having some other interface, like we was just looking at the Medusa video there, and it's got the grid-based layout, like you've got the Ableton Push. For me, I'm more into that kind of interfacing these days. But I've spoke about that before.
Yeah,
but
no, well, fair enough. What a beast. I mean, impressive project, really impressive project. And no doubt, sorry, go.
If you was to say, I want a polyphonic Moog and I want it to be the nuts, they've done it. You've got it all in there, really. 8 or 16 voice. You've got you've got eventide effects in there. What else would you want in there? And then you've got, of course, the 9 assignable CV gates, which at this point, I don't know if you could take advantage of some of maybe the onboard sequencing, step sequencing, to use them with the assignable gates. But I guess we'll find out more about that as more details come out.
I suspect so, to be honest. I mean, there's one of the things that I noticed. I joined the Moog one because, I mean, basically the only place that has any assets for this is Sweetwater. Sweetwater, the only people who've written the story. Moog aren't sending it out to the press until, I think, Monday, possibly, where we'll have maybe videos and other content that will come out, so we'll know what it sounds like. So I was checking on that, and one thing that's quite interesting is you can see, if I bring the web page up, obviously there's an OS and a GUI underneath it, and I think it's got an embedded Linux thing. And there was an interesting chat. I think it runs on Juice, because Amos Gaines and Geert Bevan were talking at the ADC, which is a Juice. This is the C++ framework that you develop GUI and you develop synth stuff in. And they were doing a talk on how to develop. So I suspect underneath it, you know, running all of that stuff as well as the analog electronics is that going on. So Ty, I'm guessing this is probably something that I mean, you know, you've got a Schmidt, you know, you like the finer synthesizers in life as well as the cheaper ones as well. And I suspect this is something that might be really kind of something you would like, right?
Yeah, there's lots of things about this that I wouldn't mind just having a say about. I mean, not only the synth, but also the perception of it, of the synth, and where it fits in the market. And but let's start with the synth. So, I mean, I've kind of known about this now since January, and yeah, I know quite a few people that have been lucky enough to go and see it. I haven't played it myself, and people have come back and they go from different parts of the industry. They've all said completely unanimously that this thing is amazing, that the build quality, bearing in mind we're talking about a prototype back in January. The
Yeah.
prototype was incredible in terms of the build quality. In terms of the sound that was coming from it, it was amazing. In terms of the facilities and the function, it's a flagship. It's as simple as that, really.
Yeah.
And it needs to be seen in that way, really. It is a player synth. I don't think there's, I think Matt's right about that. But I'm a player, so for me, it's. I mean, I decided a few years ago that every time I have a mono synth, I get frustrated, and I'm only really happy with polysynths. And so I've kind of almost consciously stopped buying mono synths. And so this, for me, it's great. I mean, the thing is, when you do have synths like this, that they charge the price that they're charging, you kind of start to think, okay, well, what have they missed off? And as much as I absolutely adore the Schmidt, but there are things on it that aren't on it. There are things I'd like to have on it that aren't there. There are also things that are on that aren't on the one. But in terms of things that they've left off the one, there's nothing. You need to bear in mind with this thing that you can have it essentially set up as 3 completely discrete synths. This isn't 3 mono synths. This is 3 completely discrete synths with their own effects, their own inserts. And we're not just talking about inserts within the synths. We're also talking about the thing that no one seems to be picking up on this. It's also got hardware insert points across the synth as well. So you can be plugging in your own. That's right. 4 of them. So you can be plugging in Muga Fugas, you can be plugging in, kind of delays or chorus or whatever external hardware. As Matt said, combined with all the CV and gates. Honestly, this kind of brings me to the second point. I'm not saying this is a bargain. I think, Nick, you've read my post that I put on the Sonicstate thing about it. It's not. I'm not saying it's a bargain, but when you compare it to what else you can get for that kind of money, if you were going to, kind of go into those kind of realms of building up this kind of synth, honestly, I really do think it's not bad value. And especially when 2 things to consider. First of all, as I said, and I've said this so many times, is the fact that people who turn around and say it's too expensive. No. Don't confuse it's too expensive with it's a lot of money that I don't have and I can't afford it.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, everyone on this panel, every single person, has at some stage started with nothing and built up and gradually wanted to get more synths. And I remember when I was young, I used to sit there looking at Jupiter 8s and, Memory Moogs and Prophet 5s, dream of owning these things. But not once did I go, they're too expensive. The difference is, it's a price that I can't afford. I can afford a crap little mono synth. I can afford an SH101, but that's my limit. It isn't that those synths were too expensive. I couldn't afford it. And Don't confuse the two, because this is a flagship synth and they will sell. I've got one on order. I've got a 16 voice that's going to be coming to me, which is great. I'm fortunate I can afford it, but it's not expensive. And what really rubs it home is you look at some of the really mediocre polysynths out there that are now going, vintage polysynths, that are going for ridiculous amounts of money for what are essentially very average synths. But they're covered with all the kind of the rose-tinted spectacles about how amazing they were. They're not that amazing. When you actually get down one, you take, you don't plug it through any effects. You plug it straight into the desk. A lot of them are very mediocre and they are going for stupid money. I mean, anyone that would take something like a Chroma or a Synthex or a Jupiter 6 or something like that over one of these, you're buying it for the sake of you're buying an old vintage, car. You're not buying it because of the sound. You're buying it because you want the vintage. So this then becomes a bargain. And then there's the thing that annoys me about when people moan about it's too expensive. You've got to look at this in the same way as you view cars. No one says that Ferraris or Lamborghinis or Bentleys, they're too expensive. You can't afford them at that moment in time in your life. If you could, you may want to get them, but they're not too expensive. You just can't afford them. There's a big difference.
Yeah.
And finally, this is my final bit. This final bit of the rant is the fact that you get people who are online being absolute, complete wipes. They're absolute idiots. And you turn around, they're turning around and going, well, this is too expensive. I'm going to wait for Behringer to bring out the 1,000, kind of dollar copy. Oh my God. These are different kinds of instruments. If you think this is your everyday plastic piece of crap that is going to conk out in 2 years' time, it's not like that. If you go and ask anyone that's into the carpentry industry, you ask them how much it would be just to produce the ash woodwork of this. Just ask them how much that would be. That's going to cost more than your average cheap plastic synth before you even start going into the electronics. And the reality is that if you want to buy cheap stuff, and you know as well as I do, I love cheap synths. Some of them are amazing for the money, but don't compare a cheap sub 600 quid polysynth with this. It's idiotic. If you want that kind of the lower end of the market, that's fantastic. That lower end of the market is there for you. You can create great music with it, enjoy it, admire it. If you want the high-end stuff, there has to be high-end stuff there for lucky people like me who use it every day and are lucky enough to be able to afford it. These need to exist.
Yeah.
These absolutely need to exist. They are not expensive. It is simply that at this moment, these people that are moaning about it don't have the funds to buy one.
I think that's a fair point. I'm just going back quickly to the construction. I mean, it does look like it's very similar in construction concept to the Sub 37, which I have to say is really well built and was, as a great mono synth. I know that lots of people have them. Yes, Steve.
Yeah, I would just throw in on this, really building on what Ty was saying, that I think it's important that instruments like this exist. New instruments like this exist. They are examples of excellence, and in a way the cost of it isn't really the important thing when we view it in a wider musical instrument culture kind of view, if you know what I mean. I feel that for quite a while the focus has been on I don't want to say cheap and cheerful, but basically instruments that have been defined by as much by their compromises as they have by what they can actually do. And the fact that this Moog 1 exists, and not only is it an extension of the sound that's been around for a long time, but we've got new facilities that I must admit I wasn't even aware you could actually have on this machine, including, like, for example, the inserts that was mentioned earlier before. This is pointing, hopefully, the way forward. And it reminds me of when people used to, I suppose they still do, complain about Apple Macs being expensive. But then when you look at the design, when you look at what these machines actually can do for that price, yeah, you're getting what you paid for. And I suppose ultimately that's what we're getting here with this machine.
It is very interesting.
So I was going to say, the other thing is that, I mean, I know it's all very well comparing it with the prices of these flagship instruments back in the day, but the reality is that if you start putting in inflation and blah 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 blah,
they were way more expensive. Yeah.
They were way more expensive. And again, no one was moaning back in 1976 that a CS80 or in 1981 that a Jupiter 8 was too expensive. They just saw them as being flagship products that we all dreamt of, and we all did everything we could to get. The problem actually is a cultural thing, because this is a culture now where we think that music, well, no, actually, no, not we think, lots of people think that music should be free. People, that we shouldn't have to pay for music. And these are the same people that then moan that they can't make a living in the music industry, but they're quite happy to take free music. So people expect things for nothing. And
I think you're right. I think what's also interesting is because of the sort of democratization and the wider availability of the ability to make music, and in many, many different ways, when you see somebody kind of play, it's the same in the guitar. When you see someone playing, a 1957 whatever it is, and it sounds great, and it's a guitar, but people are just going, well, I've got my cheap Chinese Strat and I've got some effects. I can be more creative than that. My creativity will easily will plug the gap between what's perceived as I can only do that with that instrument. And so the idea that you need anyone would need or require an instrument of this quality or expense sort of feels like it's something that's almost to be shot down. It's not to be aspired to so much anymore. It's to be, and that's interesting.
It is. You're absolutely right, Nick. And I think the one thing that I'm going to leave my moan about this with one simple statement is that I just remember when GarageBand came out on the iPhone or the iPad or whatever it was. And I think at the time, I don't even know what I think it was like £4 or something.
Yeah,
was it 179 or
yeah,
£4.79, something like that? Okay. And you read the reviews with people complaining about how expensive it was. Now, just think what GarageBand does. just think. And people are complaining about spending a couple of quid on GarageBand, saying it's too expensive. These are the absolute same bloody idiots that are growing up into this world now where they complain that everything is too expensive. That's my rant.
Yeah, well, I think you're right. It's a cultural thing. But anyway, the good news is it is available. It's you can certainly, I think you can probably pre-order it on Sweetwater already, and it is going to be coming out soon. I don't know how many they're going to make. I'd imagine that they'd struggle to make, because usually Moog, they release limited edition stuff, because that means they don't have to commit to massive production runs. So I'm guessing they're probably going to be X many available, and then they'll see how they sell. And they've probably got loads of pre-orders, and it will do great for them. And I will probably get one here for review, and it'll be really interesting for me, because one thing I have noticed is, there are a few differences to the regular Moog Moog topography. It's got a ladder, state variable filter, and a ladder filter, which I like the idea of. So a multi-mode filters, and the ladder filter will do a 6 dB slope, which actually is one thing I really quite like on the Sub 37. So, it's not going to be just that Moog thing. It'll do, it's going to expand the sound palette, and I think that's going to be the interesting part. I mean, whether or not, I'm never going to be able to afford one, but...
Just last point from me, I just think hats off to the company for doing this, particularly in this current climate. And there are a lot of cheap synths out there, and there are, all the copycats and things. Just hats off to a company like this for taking maybe a little bit of a gamble. I know these might not be as mass produced as other synthesizers, but this is just great to see that a company like Moog are saying, yeah, we're going to do this, we're going to do it properly, and here you go, this is what you want, this is the flagship, and here it is. And I'm just really delighted to see that. So
yeah,
just my last point on that.
Yeah, well said, Matt.
Jolly good. Well, I think that's something we can probably put to bed. Hopefully we'll start hearing sound demos and things coming up soon, so that's going to be really interesting to hear how they voiced it, because I think that was probably quite a big challenge. Like we say, a Moog oscillator is a big thing, and it takes up a lot of sonic space, so it's going to be quite interesting to see how it's been done. We should probably just have a little bit of a mention from our friends at iZotope, because it's competition time, and we're talking about iZotope's
RX continues to be the
RX7, latest industry standard
in audio repair for music and post-production.
Lots of new features.
With RX7, we've introduced groundbreaking new ways to quickly and easily fix and manipulate audio. Take the game-changing Repair Assistant, an intelligent helper that can detect noise, clipping, clicks, hum, and more. Also new in RX7 is Music Rebalance, a powerful source separation tool. Drums too loud? Vocals not loud enough? Let's fix that. You can also create instrumental versions of songs by removing the vocal elements. You can now alter the pitch without affecting the timing of your audio, and conversely, alter the time without affecting the pitch with the new variable time and variable pitch modules. Using the new dialogue contour, you can improve the performance of a line or even create a new performance by altering the pitch contour of the dialogue, therefore adjusting the intonation of the speaker, and introducing Dialogue Dereverb, a module powered by machine learning to reduce the presence of reverberations around dialogue. RX7, a new frontier in audio repair.
And if you want to check that out, head over to izotope.com/RX, where you can download a free demo. It's quite a long ad because there's so much new stuff in it. So ordinarily I'd be talking all over it and bring the bullet points. But what I took their introduction and I edited out all the fat and just cut it to the new stuff, and there was still plenty. So we have a competition. Last week we asked, was the first week we were offering it as a prize. So we have a winner. Now how am I going to pronounce this? A winner last week. So we've got for Sonic Talk episode 551. We have a winner called IOI Flower on Twitter, at IOI Flower. That's the letter I on Twitter. They tweeted the winning entry that was picked from a random number of entries. A lot of people entered the competition, so this is obviously a very popular prize. And so if you want to join in for win a copy of this for next week, this week's competition is we're looking for the hashtag audio repair. That's one word, the hashtag audio repair, the hashtag RX7 to at Sonicstate and at Isotope Inc. So the hashtag via Twitter is hashtag audio repair, hashtag RX7 to at Sonicstate and at Isotope Inc. And if you do that, you'll be entered to the competition, and it's well worth doing. If you do work with audio, I mean, it's so useful. And most of us who do work with audio probably couldn't be without it for much of the time. Anyway, that's what you call a pretty decent plug. So let's see. Mr. Diego Stocco is at it again. He emailed me recently just to tell me about a new video he's been working on.
I was studying classical piano, and I had to practice scales every day. But I was growing tired of it. And one day, I lost it. The sound that came out of the piano when I hit the keys with my fist really caught my attention. It was rich, powerful, and it was different.
Great intro to the video. I mean, I know he's been working on that a long time. New website, lots of new music, and that's essentially, it's called Made of Sound, and I love that little introduction. It's kind of like it's almost like a fairy tale, that kind of light bulb moment where he kind of goes, this is what I want to do. And obviously in the video goes on to show, I think it's like 11 new instruments he's been working on, so he's been very busy. And in the meantime, been doing a whole load of work releasing stuff. I guess it must be library music for BMG Music Production. So he's got like a ton of albums up there. So he's kind of relaunching a kind of new creative phase. And we like Diego. Diego's been on the show a number of times. He did email us. I'm sorry I haven't been able to make it, but I'm a musician and I can't get up at that time in the morning in LA, which is fair enough. I know Ty. I mean, he's one of the kind of high points in the creative industry. I mean, what he does is great, and he's such a lovely bloke as well.
Amazing, absolute genius. It's this kind of thing that made me get into music in the first place. I mean, I've told the story so many times about how I used to just sit there with. Before I could afford any instruments, and I used to sit there with little electronic games that had bleepy bloppy things, and I used to get things and hit things, and I had used to get shortwave radio and just make kind of sound design-y kind of things, just to kind of discover new sounds, discover new timbres. And I spend forever with all of my instruments and samplers and things, just trying to do what isn't the norm, just trying to move away from what everyone else is doing in terms of sound, and he's doing it on this such amazing, in an amazing way, on an absolute basic acoustic level. Honestly, the man is an absolute genius. Absolutely
it's brilliant. Great. It's great. A lot of the stuff, and a lot of the stuff is very musical. I know he does a lot of sounds and creates all these beautiful textures. There's the new website's got some great pictures on it as well. So.
That's the thing. It's combining the musicality, because anyone can just go and make random sounds and they're fine, but they're more limited what they can be done musically. Whereas he's got that perfect balance between it being incredibly musical, but, incredibly original at the same time. I studied, I've said this before so many times. So I did thesi in John Cage with prepared piano. And this is basically just a very, kind of prepared piano, but taken to the extreme. And it's great. Honestly,
he's all kinds of stuff.
Very, very, very clever man.
Matt, do you do sound design modules in your college? I mean, is that something that's, how far can your students go, or how far have you seen it go? I mean, is it in any level like this?
Yeah. Straight away, we introduce them to trying to get them out of, just working with the basic building blocks of a DAW and some plugins that you've got on your computer. And we look at sound design, and we look at Radiophonic Workshop, and we look at Cage and those kind of artists as well, and give some kind of cultural underpinning about where that sort of thought process has come from in the past. We go out a lot around Brighton with handheld recorders. I carry one everywhere. Collecting found sounds, and then we might come back and try and turn seagulls into a kick drum and that kind of thing. And then look at all the possibilities that you've got in doing that, and building your own drum kits up from found sounds. And yeah, just trying to inspire them and think about things like Ty said, both not just in terms of the sounds you're using, but also then how you structure those sounds in a musical way as well, and how you can use them. And often I find that when you start doing this with students, you know, little light bulbs go on, because for a long time they've just existed in working with, you know, a laptop, a computer, or a traditional studio setup. And then they suddenly start going, oh, hang on a minute, you know, sound is everywhere. It's always around us. There's always a possibility to record and be inspired by something new and inject that into the music that they're making. And it's really great when you start delivering lessons like that, and you see these little light bulbs going off, and new sparks of inspiration, and then of course seeing what they get up to, which can inspire the teacher again. You know, it's like a circle, learning from each other. So yeah, we do it across all year groups.
Excellent. Excellent. I think one of the things about this is, you know, we all love the idea. It's like he's the sort of aspirational kind of figure, isn't he, Diego? It's like he's the man living the dream, you know, whereas my meager efforts at kind of, oh, I know I'm going to sample something, and then it's just like, you know, next time I can't actually be bothered, I'm just going to use this, you know. Do you know what I mean? What's hard to maintain is the momentum to work in a unique and unusual way, particularly if you had the time constraints or what have you, to be able to devote as much time as he has to be able to create these unique soundscapes and unique instruments. I mean, I'm guessing some of the stuff he does will be creating unusual music beds and music stuff for syncs for films and stuff, but some of it will go towards perhaps instruments that he can then make sounds for and sell on in terms of sample libraries. I don't know. Steve, it is an unusual, you know, what he does is very unusual, and it is very aspirational. Do you find that you're able to take it outside the just, you know, experimenting with electronic music and synthesis yourself, or do you know, like the rest of us, have to just sort of stay within certain boundaries, otherwise you'd end up, you know, wandering around the house at midnight recording paper clips dropping on mirrors and all that sort of stuff, you know?
Well, we've all been there. That's not really been a problem for me. What I really enjoy about this guy's approach to this guy's music is that there's a connection to the physicality of creating a sound. There's a sort of an energy. I don't want to talk spiritually about this sort of thing, but there's an energy to it that you maybe don't get from, you know, computers. We don't get them from computers and other kind of synthesizers. That physicality is really, I think I find it inspirational, and it's important. But also there's a sense of invention, you know. So it's combining things that you wouldn't normally expect to hear together or be combined, and getting a new result. One example of this is nowhere near as amazing as what our friend here has done, but with the CP70 behind me, it's basically just a piano, but it's got a whole load of guitar picks underneath the strings. So what that means is that many of the things that you could at least attempt with a guitar, you can attempt with this piano. It takes you, you know, somewhere you wouldn't expect. So, for example, you can use an ebow on the strings. Yeah. You can attempt to bow it, or that doesn't. Sometimes that can work. It's interesting, but it's that sense of invention I think is fascinating. And then, of course, the next step from there is that you've got your found sound or whatever. It's what you can do with those sources within your, let's say, computer. So back in the old days, I did sample paper clips on mirrors, and I did try and turn seagulls into kick drums. In fact, if you walk around Brighton, there's so many of them. You regularly see people doing that on the seafront. But it's things like taking the sound of a door closing or whatever and sticking it into a modern sample-based instrument like Isotope's Iris, where you can isolate specific frequency ranges and remove them or enhance them, and you get something that's a combination of, you know, state-of-the-art digital manipulation, but it's got that physicality of a sound from the real world, and it's I find it really inspiring, actually. I really do.
I'd just like to point out that turning seagulls into kick drums is a very highly qualified contender for the show title this week. That and all that Moog in one place though is another one. I'm not sure which one of those two to go for, but they're both very strong contenders. Yeah, well, I mean, hopefully we'll get. Yeah, in fact, what I've done, I preliminarily said, you know, when we're at NAMM in January, we'll get together and do an interview there where we're on his time zone rather than at sort of 7 o'clock in the morning on a weekday where he's probably not going to be up. And there was always problems with leaf blowers outside his windows. I seem to remember where we got, but. Yeah, very cool stuff. You want to check his stuff out, diegostocco.com. It's made of sound. It's all over the place. You can check his stuff out. I guess let's have a look. What else can we have a look at? Maybe we can combine these two things. Obviously, Apple updated the Logic and Mainstage recently, Logic 10.4.2 update, which I know, as you said, Steve, you were using recently. And these are it's interesting. Mainstage now has got to the point where, you know, if you don't want to use a DAW, you just want a really good VST or AU host. That's actually a really cracking option now. And the recent updates increase, sort of bring it more into line with Logic 10.4. So there's all sorts of ways that it'll interact with it, and you know, you can move stuff around. But it's interesting. But there seem to be phases. There's a cyclical kind of thing where you get really massive developments in sort of DAW and software, and then you just get into these kind of points where it's iteration and features just sort of gradually incrementation, and it feels like we're in one of those phases, unless I'm wrong. I know, Steve, you were talking about using a new workflow with the Melodyne side of things, but now it's harder to find something that somebody hasn't thought of already and is going, wow, this has got to be working in a DAW. I don't know if, well, Steve, I mean, you using Logic. I mean, are there any of those in this sort of update that you kind of go, no, actually, I disagree with you there. It's a big one.
No, I think this is more of a refinement, and they're certainly useful enhancements. As I was saying earlier, I've just been using it with so Logic 4.2 with Melodyne, both, so the latest versions. And what's changed there is that you can, when you're working on a comp vocal, you can change the vocal take, and this will be reflected in Melodyne whenever you press play. So that's a big change. It's certainly useful, but is this a big leap forward? No, I don't think so. The changes to the mixer are really nice. So if you've got a whole load of sends on a channel, in the past you'd have to, you know, point your mouse at a little dial and try and sort it out from there. But now you can use a fader, and that's much more, I think it's a bit more precise. It also it kind of feels better. But having said all that, I do feel that we're just on the cusp of some big changes with DAWs. I really do. I've mentioned this before on this program, but I feel that we're just at that period before machine learning is going to have a huge impact on how we interact with these programs, and that's going to have a huge impact on the processes that we use to make our music. And you can see a bit of that already with Isotope's Neutron. But I think that's just the beginning. What I'm looking for, what I'm sure will be amongst the next few steps, is where you make some music in Logic and Logic mixes it for you. All you have to do is set certain criteria. For example, you specify what is the lead instrument here, what style of music it is. Maybe you can play it some template examples of a mix, and it'll take it from there. Now, that might sound a bit horrifying to people who've spent a decade learning how to mix. But on the other hand, it means that it frees up a space in your head, the creative space in your head, to concentrate on what the music actually is. And the technical stuff can be dealt with by the software, ultimately.
Or at least get you somewhere that you would then intervene and turn it into, you know. Yeah. It's the same. It's the sort of same thing as using templates in a where you just go, right, I'm doing a session like this, bang, yeah. It's set up how I want. I mean, in some ways, you know, if there are templates that could be automatically, and we've talked about this before, the ability to kind of go, hey, it's all right, I know what tempo this is, I know what, you know, I've sorted the grid out, or I've made a grid for you that works to this tempo. Do you want me to snap it to a rigid tempo, or are you happy with it to flow around? Those are the sort of things that AI should be able to help with, right?
Yeah, I think that's true. One thing I want to add to this is that I know a lot of people get very upset when they think about skills becoming obsolete when, you know, machines take over. And I think one example of a technology that's been around for a very long time that still upsets a lot of people is auto-tune and pitch correction in general. But pitch correction has opened up a whole new load of new people who could sing a bit, and now they sing well enough to be on a record that we wouldn't have heard of before. Now, whether that's a good thing or not, I don't know. But I would recommend to anybody who's still a pitch correction skeptic, there's a fabulous article, came out a couple of weeks ago. I think it's on Quietus by Simon Reynolds, who is a great writer. And he does about 5,000 words on the history of autotune. And one of the things that's very interesting in this article is that he explains how autotune has affected styles like hip hop, and how singers now are actually singing into autotune rather than using autotune as a correction after the event, and how that's changed singing styles and affected many different styles of music. My point being that these new tools that might upset people in the short term could also open up a world of new musical possibilities in the longer term.
Yeah, I think well, according to search, it looks like it's on Pitchfork rather than Quietus, or maybe it was published in a couple of places. I don't know. Ty, are you? I mean, you know, we've been through this thing before, isn't it? You know, you have a DAW. You know, you use it every day for your work. Is it something you actually want to change that much? I mean, you need would you rather it just works and you could? Yeah.
No, simple as it's. There's very few things now. I mean, fair enough. There are every now and again some things come along that blow your mind, like Melodyne's DNA and like some of the synaptic stuff, and those absolutely blow your minds. But apart from those odd plug-in, you know, kind of moments that just make you reassess everything, the DAW itself all I want is it not to crash, to do all the things that I know it can do and do it quickly. That's all I want. And all of the DAWs that I now use they're the most important things. A lot of the bells and whistles, you know, kind of, I mean, the last update of Nuendo, I cannot think, actually, and the one before that, I cannot think of any of the functions of those last two updates that I've actually used, apart from the fact it works with my Nuage better, which makes it smoother, but that's what I'm coming down to. Actually, new functions, not used, not interested. Because it's kind of like if you're a pianist, you get used to how you play the piano, or guitarist, you get used to how you play the guitar. If someone every now and again just kept coming and going, oh, do you know what? We're just going to slip another note in between the A flat and B flat, between the A. We're going to stick another note in because people have been calling for this. You have to reassess everything. Do you know what I mean? It's that if someone turned around and went, do you know what? We actually think that the guitar should actually have 6.5 strings. So we're going to build another string across the top. You don't want that. You get used to it. You learn to play it that way. That's what you want. For me, anyway, that's how I view it. And so for me, all I want them to do is make it more reliable, quicker, you know, kind of just more stable. That's all. That's from this point on. That's kind of it for me. And apart from, as you say, these odd plugins that come along and blow your mind. And
yeah, well, they're extensions rather than the core functionality, I suppose. So yeah.
Absolutely. And the thing is, most DAWs now have that core, you know, those core things. The one thing I kind of disagree with Steve in a way, in that I don't want something that's going to come and tell me how to mix. It's the same way that what's that thing by Hexachords? Orb, is that the one that is like an AI composer thing that basically helps you compose, basically. So you put in chords, you put in how many bars, you put in and then you have sliders to say how intense you want it to be. It's AI in composition. I have a horrid feeling that DAWs are going to start integrating that kind of rubbish, and that then turns, you know, that worries me. Because that's the same way.
You can have a direct comparison. It's like, well, this is what you came up with, and this is what the algorithm
exactly.
We prefer the algorithm, you know. Yeah,
absolutely. So that I have no interest.
Yeah.
But the thing with AI maybe helping with mixing, Ty, we know how long mixing takes. What about having a one button press that cuts out the
Gets
first
a gain structure?
Or the first 3 hours of getting a balance, and then you put on your 3 hours on the top.
Fair enough. That kind of level. I'll backtrack. That kind of level. Absolutely. If it cuts out a lot of the dirty work and actually learns from mixes you've done previously, going, well, actually, we've seen that you like this kind of this plug-in structure. You use this quite a lot. How about that kind of thing?
Should that be a paperclip or maybe a kind of little animated fader or what?
I see you're trying to be successful at music.
Matt.
Can I help?
I think it's.
Yeah. Okay. What do you think?
I think.
Well, we're having a delay issue here. I need an automated switcher helper because of the delay.
Go with Matt.
Matt, it is interesting though, isn't it? I mean, there is a point at which you sort of don't want any radical changes, but maybe you do.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think you get to a point like when I started doing stuff for TV and adverts, it was so important that I went to my machine, turned it on, and it was ready to go, and everything was how it was left, and I was able to recall certain workflows really quickly, and that was really important. When I was younger and before I started doing that, it was different. I couldn't wait for new things to appear in Logic. Oh, it's got a new reverb, or it's got new this. One thing that concerns me a little bit about this new Logic update, there's a new channel strip fader and pan controls that can be used for setting level and pans, I think, on auxiliaries. And, things like that immediately for me go, I'm not going to update that if suddenly all my faders or my auxiliaries work in a completely different way for setting level and pan independently from how they were. Yes, you want some things you want to change, but some you don't want a surprise these days. And I tell all my students to turn off auto updates. You don't want to open up Logic one day or Ableton and then suddenly things have changed enough to slow you down and to get you out. You've sat down with your cuppa and you're about to start your work for the day, and you want to keep that momentum going. What I am interested about more so, though, is the main stage developments. What I really like about main stage, and you mentioned this already, Nick, is, main stage has really come on as this app that I still think is quite widely underused by musicians, particularly in electronic music, who want to go out and play live. They don't want to load up a DAW just to host some plugins. But now it's got some serious integration with MIDI, CC controllers, and playback, and it's got some really new, interesting rhythmic effects and that kind of thing. What I like about this, and what I've liked about Ableton is because it is that crossover between creating a production in the studio, and then you can pretty much get up and you can go out and perform live with it. In that it's a playable DAW as well as it's a compositional DAW.
Yes, that's true.
And what you've got here with main stage, Logic have kind of separated that. You've got Logic as your compositional, and then your main stage is the kind of performative world for it. And I think a lot of my students are surprised when we start talking about main stage and what you can do with that, and they go, "Oh, really? Well, that suddenly solves so many things for them when they want to go out and perform live and use their favorite plugins or methodologies that they've got already working inside of Logic." So main stage is a winner, and I'm really happy to see more and more things appearing in that world, more so than I am in Logic at the moment. I just want Logic to work.
Wow.
But
I'm just looking. I just thought, what does it come at? It's $28.99 for main stage.
Is that all it is?
Main stage is an absolute bargain. Main stage is great. I mean, I'm not a Logic fan using Logic at version 10 because I just hate it. But with main stage, I think it's fantastic. I can't even think of, if I did live stuff, I couldn't even think about looking elsewhere. And plus, from my point of view, it keeps Alchemy going.
Yes, and I think the things that I really want to see is this more particularly for electronic music, is this ability to use your DAW more tightly integrated with performing live. The software is one element. MainStage is great. Ableton is great. But just integrating it still with hardware gear when you're playing live, you know, I'd like to see a little bit more unity in that, particularly, you know, in my world, working with modulars and hardware a lot more. I just, I don't know. I think I still feel like in 2018, we feel a little bit behind on that, in that technology, that integration of software and hardware for live performance still. There's still too many headaches when you rock up at a gig and something doesn't work for some reason because of a driver or,
yeah,
you know,
well, absolutely.
it worked all right in the studio, but not on the stage.
I just hold on. I just want to put this one logical technique in the chat room, which is that's in YouTube chat room. Says I bought MainStage just so I could have the Logic content, and that's actually really true. $28.99, you get MainStage, but you also get 57 gig hard disk for full sound library installation, so you get all of that sound stuff. So if you're looking to kind of maybe if you're on a Mac, that is obviously that's obviously a given. But if you think I need a whole bunch of new software, just a new sound instruments and plugins and sound library to get me going, $28.99 will get you the full.
That's not bad.
Mate, that's not bad.
People start complaining it's too. People start complaining it's too expensive.
Maybe
That's to be an educational discount.
Well,
can I just mention?
yeah, I'm just looking at that. I don't think it is.
Sorry,
Steve.
One thing.
Who was going?
Sorry,
Steve was. Yeah, Steve was just about to go. Yeah, go, Steve.
I was just going to mention something else. When we were thinking about the new developments, where we're going to go with DAWs next, just overlooking the machine learning thing for a moment. When I was first sort of studying computers as an adult, not as a kid, one of the things that we were taught to visualize to do with the internet is just imagine what you could do with the internet if there was bandwidth wasn't an issue, if latency wasn't an issue. Essentially, that your computer would be connected to another computer as if it was on the same circuit board.
Right.
Now, we're a lot closer to that now than we were. Now, I'm just wondering, maybe that's a next step. What about where the limitation of what we can do with our DAWs is not the power of our CPUs? Instead, we rent CPU, and a bit like you can do right now with Amazon and their server farms, but we can actually just connect to the internet and with almost no latency, or maybe even no latency, have access to essentially unlimited power. That, I think, would be an extraordinary facility that you could maybe use within a DAW. And this sort of thing, I don't think is that far off. We've got 5G coming. I think it would be the end of next year, maybe this country, but it's certainly around the corner. This is a mobile data connection, and that's promising cable speeds across the air. It's going to revolutionize at least the domestic market for internet connections. Just that one thing, what maybe that could do for music, I think.
That's a good point.
The way forward.
Well, that combined with VST Connect, which
the Steinberg thing that the Steinberg thing that didn't quite deliver yet. Yeah, great idea.
Always tried to get to work. Great, fantastic idea, and how they've, but it just never works. It just never quite worked. As it combined with what Steve was talking about. That could be useful.
Yeah, I know. I totally get that. There are certainly in the video world and in Logic, there used to be things called Logic nodes where you could run them as sort of, what were they, extra VST process? I can't remember whether that still even happens. I don't think so.
That was offloading, I think, processing power to another Mac, so you could essentially have two Macs connected together with one doing the processing and one just doing the sequencing, basically. But I think now, with the leaps and bounds in technology, we don't really need it. Can I just say one thing on the content you was talking about? You get all that content just for getting MainStage. I think we've got to eventually, or we're going to see a lot of this content just going cloud-based, don't you think, as we move forward? I mean, Native Instruments. I mean, how big is that library to install now? It's It's massive, isn't it? I think it comes on a hard drive now. It used to come on DVDs back in the day.
You can buy it on a hard drive. I think you can. Can you download it? You probably can download it. So
no, on the bigger ones, it comes on when you order it, it comes on a hard drive, whatever. But then after the event, you can download stuff again.
I think I've got one of them somewhere.
I think essentially that all the sample libraries.
Oh, sorry.
I was only going to say the one thing I was going to say, and I think Matt kind of touched on it, was the other thing is if people aren't aware of Alchemy, it's worth getting main stage, forgetting all of the rest of the content just for Alchemy, because Alchemy was a synth a few years old now from Camel Audio that was
that's right. You get that as
It's probably one of the best software synths out there. I mean, it was I bought all the libraries for it. I used it all the time. I know Robbie did. Robbie, both of us were absolutely gutted when it disappeared as a company and Apple bought it up. But now, bearing in mind that it is seriously still one of the best software synths, you get it in main stage. I mean, it's
28 quid. Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, it's ridiculous.
Yeah. So sorry, yeah, I think you're right though, cloud-based, Matt. I mean, it just makes perfect sense, doesn't it? Just totally makes perfect sense.
Yeah, well, if you think about it, all the content anyway for MainStage and Logic comes down from the cloud when you install it anyway. But for me, I've gone pretty much cloud-based. I'm using the one by Loop Cloud by Loop Masters.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Basically for grabbing. That's a good one. I know there's sounds.com. There seems to be maybe a little bit of a race at the minute for these leaders in digital content being available in the cloud in the future. Maybe I think that's certainly going to be a trend. I mean,
and that's all good. I suppose so. That's good. I mean, but then what we end up in the situation is, and we sort of are already really, because I mean, if the internet goes down here, I mean, can't do anything. All our documents and all our emails on Google Cloud, our entire service runs on Amazon Cloud stuff. You know, we get to the point where internet is a basic necessity, you know, like electricity, phone, water, gas, you know, heat, all those things, and you have to have that to be able to even work. So, but that's perhaps another argument for another time. But yes, I think we are getting there, and it will be there, and it'll just be a question of whether you can afford the kind of backup of the audio, you know, so whether you got your 5G router that can flip from cable to back again and what have you. Fellas, thank you so much. I think we've probably, I haven't covered all the topics, but we've had a damn good run at it. and I want to thank you very much. I don't know if anyone has anything specifically they want to add before we wrap up, because I know we missed out a couple of topics, but it feels like that might be a good place to wrap things up. I'll take that as a yes then. Okay. All right. Before we go, I want to say, don't forget, if you want to enter to win the copy of Isotope RX7, we're looking for the hashtag audio repair and the hashtag RX7 to @Sonicstate and @Isotope Inc. That's the hashtag audio repair to @audio repair and the hashtag RX7 to @Sonicstate and @Isotope Inc. So it just comes to wrap up and say goodbye to all, I guess. Steve, thank you very much for joining us this week. It's been a pleasure as ever. You sounded like you were about to say something.
Thanks for having me. I was going to say something actually. Just as anything else anyone wants to mention, I know that we've already had a plug for Isotope and RX7, but I got it last week and I was playing with it ever since. I've not used it in anything like production wise, but I've been playing with it, and it really is an extraordinary piece of software. And the thing that I found most interesting with it is the ability, when you make instrumentals from finished mixes of, let's say, you know, commercial releases, you can hear what's going on in the arrangement that was otherwise masked by the vocal. You can hear more detail of what the producers and the musicians had played and how they wrote the tune. So on a educational level, if you want to just discover how tunes are made, it's fascinating. It's like you're dissecting the DNA of a piece of music, and for that alone, I would recommend it to everyone.
Good thought. Thank you very much there, Steve. Okay, well, we'll see you again soon. Thank you very much for joining us. Also, Mr. Matthew Hodson at MatthewHodson.com. Thank you for joining us too. Been a pleasure as ever.
Nice one. Thanks so much for having me, guys. It's been great on the show, and nice to speak to everyone in the chat room again today.
No problem. Always a pleasure to have you. And of course, Mr. Ty Unwin, who's had a couple of hours off and some time in the daylight. Look at that.
I know. Back to it now. So.
Really? Well, you know,
yeah.
that's all right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very
good.
much. That's been great. And thank you, everybody, for joining us. Thank you for those in the chat room on YouTube or on Facebook or wherever. So that's it for this week. We'll say goodbye. I'm just going to make sure I can switch off the Facebook live video. We'll see you next time. That's episode 552. Over and out. Bye-bye now. Thank you very much, folks. Just 1 second. Just going to switch that one off. There we go. And